Welcome back to The Narrative. Game week 6 is in the books. I'm Quaker Fari, of course. I know what you're thinking. That's not James Allcott. It's my best mate, Jamie Boyce. How you doing?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I'm very thankful to be here. Thank you for James for having me on.
Jamie's a regular contributor to The Narrative. He's also got his own things going on. Me and Jamie also run a podcast, the We Talk Football podcast. That's how we both got into the industry. And it's also Jamie's 31st birthday today.
Yeah, and I'm spending it with you.
Yeah, I'm very grateful, mate. I'm very grateful. Another busy game week in the world of football. Premier League was very, very exciting this weekend. Man United versus Burnley, or Burnley versus Man United. A potential banana skin for United. They managed to get the winner Turf Moor 1-0 win. Bruno Fernandes goal, courtesy of a Johnny Evans assist. And that's what we're going to do this week in terms of the narrative. We're going to ask you, what player do you wish that your club could re-sign? Let's get started.
Jack O'Connell will be the perfect returning player for us. In previous weeks we couldn't get the ball in the net and now we can't keep the ball out. Our back line is shaky. Jack Robinson has been our best defender so far and that's terrifying. John Egan, fan favourite club captain, isn't up to it and Anel Ahmedhodzic is not strong enough right now. I believe that Jack O'Connell could provide that defensive backbone that we need, allow us to play from the back and stop strikers from having to play a defensive midfield role. At least the last time that Newcastle won 8-0, they thrashed Wednesday.
I like that. Sam had to get a little dig in there. Not a great weekend for Sheffield United. An 8-0 loss. 8 different goal scorers for Newcastle. First time in Premier League history.
Yeah.
I can see why, based on that performance, he wants to send it back. Jack O'Connell's obviously retired at the moment, so he's kind of bending with the rules a bit, but we'll allow it, Sam. But I can see why they need defensive reinforcements because that was a terrifying display against Newcastle.
100%. I mean, Newcastle looked terrifying and Sheffield United, quite frankly, didn't look up to it for large portions of the game. If I was going to sign any ex-player, it would have been the player they were linked with in the summer, and that's Kyle Walker. I think who will go down arguably as one of the best right-backs in Premier League history, and will probably go back to Sheffield United at some point. He'd be my pick 100%.
And we've seen him playing a back three as well. One of the 3 centre-backs, and that's the formation that Sheffield United play. So, yeah, I can understand that. And our hearts go out to Sheffield United fans because that was an absolute mauling on the weekend.
Hi guys, I think Burnley have an absolutely cracking nominee for this week's narrative, and that's Kieran Trippier. Not only are we actually looking for a full-back, albeit a left-back at the moment, Southgate obviously uses him there. I'm not saying that he would play left-back for Burnley, or that he would indeed play for Burnley again. But yeah, local lad, doesn't need any more hype than the 3 assists he's just got against Sheffield United. All-round quality defender. Kieran Trippier for me.
Yeah, Kieran Trippier is great. I think he's severely underrated. He's one of Newcastle's best players and one of the main reasons why they finished where they did last year. I think this Burnley side, Company is very insistent on playing the way that they did in the Championship, and I admire that in many ways, but they are struggling in the Premier League trying to play this expansive football. I think Kieran Trippier is obviously an experienced player who could bring a seasoned head on a set of shoulders in a relatively young team.
Yeah, I agree. I think Kieran Trippier is a player, like you said, like Quinn said there, they need a left back or somebody who can play on the left hand side of the defence. Kieran Trippier's done that for England, obviously preferably as a right back, but obviously if you're a team like Burnley, you can never turn your nose up at a player like Kieran Trippier. Local lad, knows the area, knows the team, and I think he would be a perfect fit for what Vince Company's trying to do at Burnley.
Honourable shout out to Danny Ings that scores goals. Before he went to Liverpool, obviously he was scoring for fun with Sam Vokes, I believe. Sam Vokes and Danny Ings. I mean, they need to score goals in the league. Having a firing striker would be a good chance to stand in the league.
A godsend.
The former Luton Town player that I would sign is Dewsbury Hall. He was the best loan signing I think I've ever seen in a Luton top. He was Luton's own Kevin De Bruyne. He could dribble, passing was amazing, his shooting was amazing, and you see what he's doing now in the Championship for Leicester. He's literally a level above all the midfielders in the Championship, and I think he would suit perfectly within our system next to Nakamba in the midfield, and he would help Luton stay up in the Premier League.
Lewis is being very optimistic. They obviously Dewsbury Hall's a loan signing. Do you think there is any player that could come into this Luton team and actually keep them up in the Premier League? Obviously, they got their first points of the Premier League season with the draw against Wolves on the weekend. Do you think there's any player that they could bring in to keep them up?
My heart and head are saying two things. I think we all really want Luton to stay up and have a successful season, but my head's telling me a different thing. I think they need a lot to even stay in this league. I think to look at ex-players, I think you really need to go into the history books to find anyone that's going to give any sort of value to the squad. Players like, from the 90s, like John Hartson, Matthew Upton, who had stellar careers elsewhere. But yeah, Kinnan, Dewsbury Hall. I mean, to be fair, plays for a Championship club. Luton are a Premier League club. If he wants to play in the Premier League, then he could be their main man.
Well, that's the thing with Luton. They've been very considered in the transfer window in terms of they've consistently broken their transfer record, but that transfer record is not necessarily the most substantial in the Premier League. He mentioned there Martin Nakambos, I think is a decent enough midfield. They played next to Aston Villa Congo on the weekend. I think Dewsbury Hall will just add that level of class that Luton need. Whether they can ever get that done, it remains to be seen, because I don't think they're destined for a Premier League longevity, shall we say.
So we've upgraded in many positions over the summer, but I feel like the next position we may need an upgrade is in goal. Neto's been great for us, don't get me wrong. Leadership's been fantastic. But it's distribution and a few errors at the start of the season. Maybe we need an upgrade. There's a goalkeeper that got player of the season when he was with us, a door down there, who's outrageously sat on the substitutes bench at the moment. Aaron Ramsdale. Aaron, do you want to get back in that England squad? Do you want to make sure you're in the Euro squad? Do you want to live by the beach again? By a fan base that love you? Come home. Come home.
I love that from Tom. James set Tom a challenge, by the way, last week. He was like, can you wear a different Bournemouth shirt in every single video we do this season? He's managed it again. I don't recognise that one, so he's 6 for 6 at the moment. I like the Aaron Ramsdale shout. I do like it. Neto's been decent, like he outlined, but Ramsdale's a level above, no?
I agree. I mean, he was incredible for them. I think it was 2 seasons in a row he got relegated from the Premier League, didn't he? Unfortunately,
with Bournemouth and with Sheffield United.
Yeah, but he had a really strong season with them, and I think there's a lot of news circulating around him right now with the Raya and Ramsdale kind of battle. And yeah, why not? He could go to that Bournemouth side and excel. I do think it's harsh on Neto though.
Yeah, it is. It is harsh on Neto. I don't know. I think also Ramsdale's destined for bigger things. I think if you're looking at a team, I don't know what Newcastle fans are going to say on this video, but I think Ramsdale could play for Newcastle very, very easily as well. The style of football he plays is progressive. I really like Little Pope. If you're thinking about Champions League football, I think Aaron Ramsdale's destined for that.
But I mean, we could have picked Callum Wilson. We could have picked Tyrone Mings. They both could add a lot to that Bournemouth side. Yeah. So I think, Aaron Ramsdale.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
The player I would have back at Wolves is Diogo Jota, without a shadow of a doubt. It would be so easy for me to sit here and say Neves or Moutinho or something in the midfield, but honestly, the current Wolves crop is probably the best team we've had in a very, very long time on paper, just to clarify, and the style of play in the build-up has looked really, really good at times, and I do just think it is that final cutting edge that we are lacking. So Jota knows where the goal is, can score, has pace, can break teams down, just knows exactly how to score a goal, and that's all we're lacking. So bring back Diogo Jota, let us have him back, please.
Sheepish at the end there. Completely agree. Remember watching Wolves against Liverpool a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And they actually did them in the first half, but just the lack of cutting edge. And it's been that way ever since Jimenez obviously got that injury against Arsenal. He's never been the same player since. He now plays for Fulham. I think that Cunha is not a striker in my mind either.
50 million as well, by the way.
We said it before in one of these videos, he's got Joe Lintons about him, where it's like, he might be a great centre midfielder. Remember the first game of the season where he was running through that Man United midfield? But as an attacker, as a goal scorer, he hasn't got it. We know Jota's been playing centrally for Liverpool at times this season and last season as well. I think he'd be a great, great addition to this Wolves side, but obviously it's very unrealistic.
Yeah, totally agree. I think you nailed it with the cutting edge comment. I think we saw it at Man United the first game of the season as well, where they just didn't have enough to get over the line. And when you come up against, sides with serious quality like a Man United or Liverpool, they will put you to bed if you don't take your chances. Yeah. So someone like a Diogo Jota, going forward, would score him more goals. I would say Jimenez, but unfortunately, like the head injury, hasn't been the same player since. But they need a goal scorer.
Yeah.
The narrative this week is which former player would you like to have back at your club? I like to use stats to back up my point, but this one's purely on vibes. So I'd like to bring in a player who had a 4-day trial called Erling Haaland back in the day. But my serious answer would be John Stones. He's elite across the back line, would be a great player to fit in at right back or centre back, and to clean Jarrad Branthwaite's boots when needed as well. And would just be great for tucking inside, running the game, helping us out. Best player that we've sold in recent memory.
Mikel back by popular demand. He's a narrative legend, Mikel. He weren't here last week, but he's back again. John Stones, obviously, that's one of the most obvious picks. He'd be great back in this Everton side, who under Sean Dyche, he might be asked to do different things that Pep Guardiola's asked him to do.
Yeah.
We asked to defend a lot differently, but he's a world-class centre-back, one of the best centre-backs in the league, and can understand why Mikel would want him back at the club.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you look at Everton, and they need to stop conceding goals, and they need to score more goals. John Stone's one of the best centre-backs in the world, can play the ball, play however you want. You'd probably be asked to play a different way, so I have to say, in a Sean Dyche side. But yeah, that's an incredible signing. Who wouldn't want him back at the club? I would go for Romelu Lukaku.
Yeah.
You know, if we can get a hungry Romelu Lukaku, I'm talking before Man United, I'm talking before Chelsea, I'm talking even before Inter Milan. I'm thinking, you know, the Everton days, the West Brom days when he was a young striker trying to prove himself and he was just terrorising defences.
Yeah.
You know, someone like that, just to bring that energy into an Everton side. Even a Marouane Fellaini.
Oh, a Fellaini.
Remember Fellaini?
A Fellaini, yeah.
Before
Fellaini.
David Moyes took him to Man United and he became a laughing stock, Fellaini was the guy at Everton. He was the guy that would go into my fantasy team every week.
Do you know how much Sean Dyche love Fellaini? He's like, the Lukaku one's great. And also, the Lukaku one is not that unrealistic. He's on loan at Roma at the moment from Chelsea. And 3-4 years ago, you would have said, Lukaku back at Everton? No way, no how. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
That one could happen. So Mikel will like that one. Back by popular demand as well. Make sure you stick around.
Chelsea need goals, and the one man I think could provide that is a left footer, scores from inside the box, outside the box. It's the obvious candidate, it's Marcos Alonso. Loved the goal in the derbies, scored against Man City, Arsenal and Spurs many times. Never shied away from a big game. Granted, he was a bit slow and hated defending, but in a season where we've converted a left back to left wing, Marcos Alonso would suit that role to a T.
That's a debut for Aaron Dino. I'll keep an eye on the Chelsea fans very closely. I don't disagree with your assessment of Marcos Alonso during his time at Chelsea. He was obviously great for scoring a goal. Defensively, he left a lot to be desired, but got very fond memories of Marcos Alonso, especially that 16-17 season when Chelsea won the Premier League. It's interesting, on Chelsea's left-hand side at the moment, you've got Levi Cole, who's playing as left back, Ben Chilwell, who's supposed to be vice-captain on the bench.
Yeah.
It's not looking great. And Cucurella, who's just out of contention completely. So I can understand the desire from Chelsea fans, especially the Chelsea team that's struggling to score goals, why we want to bring back Marcos Alonso. But I think bringing back a prime Eden Hazard will serve us a lot better than bringing back Marcos Alonso.
I mean, we talk about ex-Chelsea players. De Bruyne, Salah. You know, you want goals. You're not going to get goals from Marcos Alonso, but you'll get goals from Salah or De Bruyne, or they'll give them to other players. Marcos Alonso's just left. I feel like most Chelsea fans kicked him out the door.
No, you're right. And that's the thing, the benefit of like hindsight, or the benefit of being seeing to the future. We are now crying out for Marcos Alonso after spending £1 billion. How might have fallen. Next one.
In terms of players that Brentford would like to re-sign, I'd definitely say it's kind of a 50-50 between Eriksen and Watkins. But for me personally, I would pick Christian Eriksen. Right now, we definitely do lack a lot of creativity in the midfield, and we're really struggling to play out from the back. It seems that it gets to the midfield, we panic, we don't really know what to do, and we kind of just hoof it to no one. So yeah, we definitely need someone who can play through the lines, and Eriksen would be perfect for that. Right now, the only real quality playmaker that we have in the midfield is Jensen, and he's kind of had a bit of an iffy start to the season. Yeah, he scores some goals, but I think his playmaking has been a bit poor, and he's given the ball away a lot. So we just need someone who's confident and experienced, and Eriksen would fit that perfectly.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that in terms of Jensen this season. The thing about Brentford, they've never been that much about ball retention. If you think about some of their most famous performances in the Premier League, it's about playing the ball long, playing up quickly. Obviously, Ivan Toney brings it down and Buemo's following in. It's a very different style of play to a lot of teams in the Premier League. But if you look at Jensen this season, his ball retention has been very, very poor. Yeah. And as a result of that, they have less control in the games. And you've seen Brentford drop points where maybe last season they wouldn't have dropped points. For me, I would go and raid West Ham, and I'll go and bring in Ben Rama. I think he'd give you a lot of creativity, but from out wide, he can sometimes play down the middle as well. You can maybe tell me a bit more about that. But Ben Rama would be a player that I'd probably bring back in if I was a Brentford fan.
Yeah, couldn't agree any more. Really, you're talking about high IQ players that can play through the lines, and I think Ben Rama is one of those players for sure. Sometimes he's a bit leaves it a little bit to be desired with his end product, but I think he would bring a lot to that Brentford side. Obviously, I'm sure they would love him back because he was loved by them in the Championship. I love that he mentioned Ollie Watkins as well. Obviously, there's a big hole being left by Ivan Toney right now, and he's being linked with a host of players, even though he's being linked with a host of teams and can't even play football right now. But Ollie Watkins could fill that Ivan Toney hole, the one he filled and occupied before Ivan Toney was there.
Yeah.
The narrative this week is that Nottingham Forest would welcome back Matty Cash with open arms. The Polish man, not from Poland, was a man reformed under Sabri Lamouchi. We may be stacked at right back these days with Aurier, Montiel, Neco Williams, but he would waltz back into that back line like he's ready to order the freshest Krabby Patty SpongeBob could cook up. Special mention to Brice Samba. May have boiled my blood a few times, but the man is one of the best keepers in the world. He deserves his Champions League football and the opportunity to rattle every attacker in the world.
Yeah, I love Matty Cash. I think he's a great right back. He's exactly what you need in a Premier League right back. I can't see anything wrong with that. There's another player I would mention. I'd mention Mikel Antonio.
Yeah,
Mikel Antonio. Obviously, I feel like he made his name at West Ham, but he came from Nottingham Forest, and I know he's still very well liked there. But I think he's I know they've got Awoniyi, of course, but Mikel Antonio, providing a little bit competition there could, prop him up the table maybe.
Bully ball. Imagine those two up top together. Defender nightmare, man. Yeah, but I like him. I think Matty Cash, I agree with you in terms of his quality, and he's kind of not gone under the radar. But I remember seeing him at Nottingham Forest. And you saw something there, but he's taken it to the next level, and I think he's added a level of physicality to his game that wasn't previously there, and he's an all-round great right back, so I can see why Forest fans would want him back.
Now, for Fulham, bringing back a former player to the club who would have an impact. I know a lot of people would say Alexander Mitrovic, that's very on the nose. Someone like Ryan Sessegnon is close to the heart. However, I personally would bring back Ademola Lookman. The 25-year-old has been smashing it since moving to the Serie A. Last season in 31 appearances, he had 13 goals and 8 assists. And this season in 5 appearances, he's already managed to bag 2 goals. He's been doing exceptionally well. He's learned to play as a second striker, and I feel as though he could have such a big impact for Fulham if he came back to Craven Cottage.
I completely agree with Scott there. And if you look at Fulham, their issue, first of all, they had an unstable summer where they lost Mitrovic, who was their best striker. The manager was linked to Saudi Arabia as well. Willian was on and off. They lost Manor Solomon, who was on loan there, but obviously he was a player who was very effective for them last season. So I can see why out wide, if you've got an aging Willian and you lost Manor Solomon, why you'd want to bring in an Ademola Lookman, who can also play centrally as well. Like Scott mentioned, they ran through some numbers. Lookman's got 13 league goals in Serie A last season, maybe a bit more favourable to his skill set. But it's no mean feat, and he started off this season very, very strong as well. So I can see why Ademola Lookman would be a great addition or re-addition to this Fulham side.
Yeah, we've seen him smash it in multiple leagues now, and I think Ademola Lookman has done it for teams in the Premier League as well. And I think one thing this Fulham team is obviously missing with the absentee now of Alexander Mitrovic is the fact that they can't score goals. And I know Jimenez is finding his feet in that team, but is he going to get the goals that Mitrovic left behind? That is to be decided. I mean, I would go back into the history books.
You love it. Go on. Go to the archives.
Moussa Dembele.
I knew you were going there.
I think he's your favourite footballer's favourite footballer, especially if they're a centre midfielder. A lot of people talk about him. And I mean, when he played in the Premier League, he was a player that I didn't appreciate because he was either at Fulham or he was at Tottenham. I didn't really think too much about it. He weren't winning Champions Leagues, winning everything, but he was starting for Belgium at the weekend. And I think the way other players talk about him and how he was such a complete midfielder, I think he could transform that Fulham side as well. That's like in an ideal world.
Do you know what I'll say about Moussa Dembele is that for all his attributes he had as centre midfielder, got a nosebleed when he got into the final third, so he wouldn't address the issue of scoring goals, but obviously just for the vibes, just for the quality, just for the class, Moussa Dembele is a level above a lot of players in the Premier League right now.
In the last few years, whenever someone brought up Palace, they're always talking about Zaha. And I'm so sick and tired of talking about him. So, whilst he's the obvious answer, I don't care. For me, Yannick Bolasie. He's a cult hero at Palace, a favourite among Premier League fans. He's a streets won't forget player. 34 years old now, without a club. We're in the midst of an injury crisis, playing Schlupp and Ayew as our wingers, with no options elsewhere other than youngsters like Ebiowi and Rak-Saki. Yannick Bolasie is fine, but he's fun, more importantly, and he can play a few games until we get our players back.
Yeah, I think the important line there is getting players back. Obviously, Elise signed new contracts in summer. He's been out all this season. Ebrieche's been playing more centrally, and like you said, he's got Ayew and Schlupp playing in the wide areas, which is not the most progressive and not the kind of best options you'd want as a Palace fan. And Bolasie was pure vibes. Bolasie was absolutely incredible to watch. He'd throw out the most random skills and probably pound for pound the best footballer rapper in the Premier League as well. So I can't understand why you'd want to bring back Bolasie. The last time we saw him play football was he's playing in the Turkish second division. So I don't know if he's got the legs for it anymore. But in terms of nostalgia, I like the idea of Yannick Bolasie.
Yeah, if we're talking vibes, some of the best attacking football I've ever seen has come in the form of a Crystal Palace side headed up by Glenn Murray, Wilfried Zaha and Yannick Bolasie. So if they could reignite that energy, then 100%. If we were going to talk about maybe more realistic signings that could add something to the team, Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Yeah. He's had a troubled time at Man United. Was loved at Crystal Palace. Obviously left early in his career, got a big fee, but there's been periods where it hasn't been working out and he could have, going back into that Crystal Palace side. Also, another guy that was very young when he was at Crystal Palace, played in the Premier League and left a little bit to be desired. But for my FIFA players out there, people that play EAFC, Alexander Sorloth. This year. He's just gone to Villarreal. He's got 4 in 6 in the league. He did well at Leipzig. And I think they need a striker who can score goals.
When it comes to my dream Manchester United re-signing, it's hard to look past that guy Welbs, Danny Welbeck. He's been extremely reliable up front for Brighton over the past 3 seasons, is quite productive in terms of his attacking output, in terms of shot-creating actions and non-penalty goals. He also would be the perfect rotational option to take the pressure off Rasmus Højlund and nurture his development. He's homegrown, he was a cult hero at the time, and he's also one of the most likeable men in football. And God knows Manchester United need a few good eggs in the club right now.
I think Gus is saying that because Danny Welbeck scores when he plays against Manchester United. He did this season. He seems to always pop up on the score sheet when he plays against his former club. I understand it. It's just crazy that we're in this position right now. Man United have spent all that money and they're crying out for Danny Welbeck to come back and save them. They're an interesting club. I don't know if that necessarily would be the solution, but I can understand where it's coming from.
You've really got to rack your brains to come up with any sort of names for this one. Mm-hmm. The only other person that I can really think of that's playing top level football really is probably Memphis Depay, and it didn't work out when he was at Man United, but obviously now he's in Atletico Madrid and he's obviously one of their main men. But Danny Welbeck, that guy Welbs for the vibes, scored at Old Trafford this year when Brighton taught him a lesson. Welbeck would add stuff to that side. With
Man United as well, I know that Ten Hag talked about wanting to be the most dynamic team in the league and the best team in transition in the league. But in terms of my mind of how football works, a midfield of Casemiro, of Bruno Fernandes, and of Paul Pogba works. I know Pogba's going through all the off-field issues, but in my mind, under Erik Ten Hag, that works. It gives you an element of control, gives you an element of goals as well, clearly, with Bruno Fernandes, and it gives you that marauding number 8. I know Paul Pogba's a different player right now, but it gives you that balance in midfield. So for my money, that works, but I know that's not going to happen.
The player we'd most like to see come back to the club would be Mikel Arteta. Currently at Real Sociedad, who was with us from 2017 to 2018 under Rafa, and he was fantastic. Great at tackling, long passes and aerially. I think he would be great in that number 6 position, and Bruno can maybe work in his better position in number 8. He had 9 assists last season in the Liga, which was joint with Vinny Jr. Only Griezmann was better. He's a Copa del Rey winner. He's 50 million, but his contract ends in 2025. He loves the club. Come on, Eddie. Let's bring him back.
He loves the club. We didn't see enough from Marino during his time at Newcastle. Only played, I don't even know if he got to play 50 games. It was a short stint there, but what he's gone on to do abroad, and Sociedad particularly, has been very, very impressive. I think the issue that Newcastle have got at the moment is that what are you asking Bruno to do and what are you asking Tonali to do? They just need to work that out. With Marino, clear that he's a number 6 sitting in front of the back 4 or back 3 or whatever system they decide to employ. I think he clearly defines that midfield, and then you've got a decision to make with Bruno, you've got a decision to make with Tonali, because there's a slight imbalance in that midfield for Newcastle, and I think that's an issue they need to address.
I think the one thing I would say about this is Marino was obviously at Newcastle at a very different time. There was a lack of quality in that squad. The club at a very similar time was Wijnaldum, who's now at Roma. And he was the shining star. He was the main man at Newcastle. And I think coming into a Newcastle side with quality and players around him that can, almost add to the game alongside him, I think Wijnaldum and Marino would both be great signings for the club.
Agreed.
So the ex-player that we would benefit the most from re-signing at West Ham is Marko Arnautovic. No secret we lack depth at the striker position this season. Danny Ings just not offering very much in this Moyes system. Marko Arnautovic can do everything Mikel Antonio can do. He's at the 86th percentile for progressive passes received this season across Europe's top 5 leagues, so he's a great outlet for counterattacks. And most importantly, he's done it for David Moyes at West Ham before, tallied 11 goals and 6 assists in that 2017-18 season here in East London. So Marko Arnautovic is our selection.
So come on, Aaron, go on. What a man. I'm a West Ham fan, so Irons first and foremost. I went to Bologna last year. Marko Arnautovic was there before he went to Inter Milan, and he was a king there. He was so well loved. There's so many parallels between our clubs. Go look that's a conversation for another day. But Marko Arnautovic, loved him. He was an experiment from David Moyes, obviously signed as a winger and then turned into a forward. It was very good for us, wanted the big money in China and went there. It was a shame how things ended, but I would absolutely love Marko Arnautovic back at the club.
Yeah, he's got that cult of personality where wherever he goes, fans of that club tend to love him and opposition fans tend to hate him. He's just got that demeanour. He's got this Latin about him. I don't know. I've not watched enough of Arnautovic recently to see if he can improve this West Ham team. We're going to be vying for European places again this season. But again, he's a player that the fans would definitely warm to very quickly because he's done it before for the club.
Yeah, and obviously we can't talk about this section without mentioning Declan Rice. One of the best players in the world. I would take him back at the club now. I'll take him back at the club yesterday.
All right, enough West Ham chat.
So the obvious candidate for this is Jack Grealish, obviously a brilliant player, our record sale, but he's a little bit of a boring answer, to be honest. So the answer I'm going to go for is Kyle Walker. Now, only played for us on the loan, but obviously unbelievable player, still more than good enough to be playing for Manchester City, and still got bags of pace, still got incredible defensive ability. So he would be the answer that I would go for. He plays in the position that we're currently weakest in, which is right back, obviously. He can cover at centre back as well. So yeah, I think he'd be a brilliant addition.
I would agree. I would agree. So we had a Nottingham Forest fan wanting to take Matty Cash from Villa, and now we've got a Villa fan who wants to take Kyle Walker from City. So it kind of works. We're making things happen here. Obviously Kyle Walker's and Jack Grealish are the obvious answers. I think Matty Cash is a perfectly adequate he's a quality right back. But if you want to take it to that level above, Kyle Walker is that level above. But yeah, like you mentioned there, Jack Grealish is the obvious answer for obvious reasons. The £100 million man who's struggling to get into the City team this season because of the emergence of Jeremy Doku. But yeah, both answers they sit well with me.
Yeah, I couldn't add anything more. I think they would both be incredible signings for the club. I think Aston Villa are very much a club on the way up. Obviously got lots of competitions they're playing this year, Conference League being one of them. And I think having a bigger squad with more inventive players like Jack Grealish could help them win that competition.
Yeah.
In terms of which player we as Arsenal fans would want to come back to the team, other than the obvious probably being Xhaka, I'd definitely say Gnabry is a great option. Provide Saka with support, in the right wing role. We definitely need some cover, good cover for Saka. We rely on him far too heavily, and while we all love him, we can't keep forcing him to play these many games every single year. And then as another option, central midfield, I'd love to see Willock come back to the club. Give us a bit more physicality, which I think we sorely miss right now.
Yeah, TMB Gunner is right to point out physicality in the midfield, and it's very easy to point the finger at Kai Havertz. We know that the two positions in midfield are now down already in Odegaard and Declan Rice. It's just on that right-hand side where it's pretty fluid. They played Fabio Vieira there in recent weeks. They played Kai Havertz there. Obviously, he's coming for big money. I think Joe Willock might not be an automatic starter for Arsenal, but when they're looking for something a bit different in midfield, a bit more rigidity, play stronger in the tackle, I think that Joe Willock can do that, and he's demonstrated that for Newcastle in previous seasons, despite the fact that he's actually out of an injury at the moment.
Yeah, I'd agree with everything you said, but I do think that Willock also brings a level of dynamism with his game as well, where he can play across that midfield and also give some cover across the forward line. I also love the addition of Serge Gnabry as well. I think Saka is the main man for Arsenal right now, and he's very much establishing himself as being the guy that's going to put Arsenal on his shoulders. And I think having another player with serious quality like Serge Gnabry on the right-hand side, just to ease some of that burden when they're going into European competitions or other competitions across the year, I think Serge Gnabry could be a good name to add as well.
I agree with that, because he can play. Last season he played predominantly on the right, but this season we've seen him play on the left. He can play as a second striker, he can play as a false nine. And that's what all the top teams have. They've had players that can play all along the front line. And so, yeah, Serge Gnabry would be a great re-addition to the team at the Emirates.
From a Spurs fan's perspective, personally, I would go with the boy, Steven Bergwijn. I do not get why Spurs fans aren't talking about him for the narrative this week. I mean, in his last season at Spurs, he was averaging 0.65 goal contributions in very limited minutes. And last season, he quietly went under the radar, getting 18 goals and assists at a troubled Ajax side. And how can you forget that debut goal against Manchester City, which lives rent-free in my head? And those comeback goals against Leicester. I mean, we sold him at an age of 23, 24 when he was coming into his prime and had a lot of high potential. But let's not dwell on the past. The future is looking great under Ange. Come on, you Spurs.
I like it. With Bergwijn, I think he suffered from the fact that he played under pragmatic managers who maybe didn't know how to bring out the best in him. You think about Antonio Conte, and you think about Jose Mourinho. They want all their players, not just defenders, to do certain things going the other way. Maybe we didn't see the best of him at Spurs. At Ajax, he's got added importance because of the attacking burden he has to carry. Ajax have not been the same side for the last couple of seasons.
No.
Obviously, Kudus provided them with a lot of output last season. He's now not there. Bergwijn has more of a burden to carry there. And Spurs fans are probably looking at the numbers he's given them and thinking that we could do with it here. But I quite like the makeup of Spurs' team at the moment. I don't know if Bergwijn would necessarily complement the players they've got there.
No, I agree. I think you hear Bergwijn and then you almost think, where would he play? When I think of players that have left Tottenham over the last few years, the most notable name obviously being Harry Kane, but that's an incredibly boring answer. But another player that's come up multiple times in this video is Kyle Walker.
Yeah.
Providing excellent competition for Pedro Porro and also a seasoned head and set of shoulders to almost have someone like Porro learn from. I think that would be an incredible signing for Tottenham. Other players like, who in my opinion is one of the best midfielders of all time, if not the best, Luka Modric. Putting Luka Modric in that midfield.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bring back the vibes.
Yeah, you would. I would take, I'm a West Ham fan. I would take a 42-year-old Luka Modric, and he's only 37, I believe. So he's the guy.
Yeah.
The legend we're bringing back to Brighton is Shane Duffy. The wet dream back in the day for Brighton fans. Well, it wasn't that long ago, 2019. Shane Duffy and Lewis Dunk playing alongside each other as a centre-back pairing. Beautiful. And Van Heck and Webster are great at the moment. This is hard overhead. And seeing Shane Duffy and Lewis Dunk on the pitch together would be a dream come true. Just one more time. Ben White was close.
Yeah. Interesting. I like that they threw in Ben White at the end. There's going to be Brighton fans screaming. The thing about the players that Brighton have lost, they've lost
Yeah.
Cucurella, Ben White, they've lost
Moises Caicedo,
Alexis
McAllister, Basuma, Trossard, Sanchez, Dan Burn.
They've lost so many players. And Shane Duffy's your answer. That's how I can tell you're a proper Brighton fan. I can understand that Shane Duffy and Lewis Dunk had that partnership. It was almost like mythical. If you think back to it, it's like, what Brighton doing now? They're like quietly cooking on the South Coast, and not everybody knows what Brighton were doing. But before this era of Brighton, under De Zerbi, where they're playing incredibly like dynamic football, Shane Duffy and Lewis Dunk were bankers, and I can understand why you'd want to bring back to the club.
100%. Shane Duffy is like, I don't know enough about Brighton current Brighton vibes to talk about Shane Duffy, so I will take your word for it. But if I was going to bring any ex-player back into this side, it'd be Leandro Trossard. It's never going to happen in a million years.
Yeah.
But before Matoma emerged, Trossard was that guy. And the thought of having him inside that Brighton side,
it'd be unbelievable. Well, any of the players they've sold.
Yeah.
But they do a great job of replacing them. So, you could pick a handful of players at Brighton, but I like the fact that you picked Shane Duffy.
Yeah.
Good on you, Cashy, for us.
Hello everyone. Last week I said this. The centre-back position looks potentially a lot healthier than we think. It's just a start for João Quanta, so we'll see how it goes. And this was Jim's response.
To judge it on Wolves, that's as easy a game to start as you can find. I'm not saying no, I'm saying I need more.
You make great points. That's why I'm going to put forward Nat Phillips to come back to Liverpool in January and not just, play a João Quanta role, to actually start games and play a big part in Liverpool's season. And I think he is good enough to do that. Get well soon, Jim. Love you. Bye.
Production value on that.
There's production quality in that.
I respect it. I don't respect the pick of Nat Phillips, Ali. I don't think he's necessarily the answer to Liverpool's prayers. I'm not
angry.
It was lockdown. They had a lot of injuries. A lot of Liverpool fans think fondly of Nat Phillips. I'm not saying he's a dead player, but I'm not necessarily. Liverpool are in position right now. They're only a couple of points behind City where they can be in a title race this season. I don't think Nat Phillips elevates them to proper title challengers, although I can understand why he has a special place in Liverpool fans' hearts, because that season where you had a multitude of injuries, he came in, did the job, and you managed to finish top 4 that season despite being up against it. So I get it.
I'm just going to fulfill the Klopp narrative right now and just buy all attacking players and not worry about sorting out the defence.
Yeah.
Raheem Sterling.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, I like it. Go on, explain.
Raheem Sterling, he's in a Chelsea side that is struggling. I mean, over the last year, they are in relegation form.
All right.
Nothing makes me happier.
Yeah.
Being your close friend, to see you go through that pain. But Raheem Sterling is too good for this Chelsea side.
Yeah.
And I think he could go into that Liverpool side and cause some...
Hi James and Kweku, and if I had to bring one City player back this year, it would have to be Samir Nasri. Ooh. Well, in that case, that can't be happening, so it's going to have to be Leroy Sané. And with all 4 of Pep's new summer signings being excellent progressive ball carriers, it's possible that he's looking to go back to a more direct system this year. And I think this would suit Sané to a T, but mostly just the thought of him and Doku playing together on either wings. It's so exciting, it makes it impossible to pick anyone else.
I love the last 2 videos, the production value of that, bit of music, some pop-ups and cutouts.
Yeah, shout out the tactics board.
Yeah.
I don't know what Samir Nasri did to deserve that.
Yeah.
But he's getting shade, but I appreciate it.
He's done a lot. We don't need to dwell on what Samir Nasri's done in this video. But yeah, we saw Leroy Sané recently in the Champions League playing for Bayern Munich. He has lost a yard of pace, but he's a bit bulkier, as players tend to do when they go out to play for Bayern Munich. They put on a bit of muscle, and he's playing more centrally now, whereas he was a pure winger when he was playing under Pep at Man City, where you had Sterling, you had Aguero, you had Sané, and it was an incredible front three that he thought would be together for years. Sané ended up going to Bayern Munich. I think he tore his ACL.
Yeah, he had a serious injury.
Yeah. And it took him a little while to come back, but he looks like a top player still, and Pep Guardiola would love to have him.
When you think about players that leave City, it's rare that it feels like it's the one that they let go.
Yeah.
And Sané is that player. I feel like when he was at City, he was electric for so many reasons.
Yeah.
And I know he had his injury problems and obviously went to Bayern Munich and they were exacerbated, but he is just a quality player. But it is a question of where would he play, you know?
Yeah, that's the thing about Pep and Man City. They rotate so much, but I think that Pep will be able to find a place for Leroy Sané because he is such a good player.
Quaker, it's my birthday, and all I wanted this year was some sort of map to mark the football stadiums I've been to.
It's a very specific request, but I've got a present for you, mate. The England Football Stadium map. We're giving away 5 of these. Literally, you can just scratch off the little maps when you go along for your away days, and you can mark off where you've been. It's updated for the 23-24 season. It's got all 72 EFL clubs, all 20 Premier League clubs. Like I said, it's been updated for this season, and for travelling football fans like yourself, Jay, it's a perfect gift.
Amazing.
All you've got to do is hit the Discord link in the description to get involved. It's been a hive of activity, and this is why I want to give something away to you guys. You've got involved with the show. You've made it what it is. We've done 6 episodes. We're going to do loads more throughout the season. So make sure you hit the link in the description for your chance to win an England Stadium football map. You thought we were done there? No. We've got one more giveaway for you guys. It's the end of September. Jamie, you know this. End of September, around your birthday time, what normally comes out?
EAFC.
EAFC indeed. It's not called the F word anymore, it's EAFC. Got latest copy, EAFC 24, to give away to you guys. As a massive thank you for getting involved in the narrative. To be in with a chance of winning, just make sure you hit the link in the description and we'll pick a winner next week.